Hey, everybody, this is Carolyn with Twisted Conversations with Carolyn. And here's Cinnamon. I don't know if you guys can see my doggy right here. But today we are going to talk about layoff. How do you feel when you've been laid off? And how do you feel once you are hired and you go back to work? And I know you're probably wondering what type of question is that? Well, I have been laid off this time. And I say this time because this is my fifth layoff in 13 years. And that sounds like a lot. It is a lot. The first time I was laid off, it was 2013, and I had been with Citibank for 14 and a half years. So that was pretty good to have been with the company for 14 and a half years. And then after that, as the mortgage industry is like a roller coaster, that's exactly what happened. It got to the point I would be somewhere for almost 2 years and get laid off. When I got hired at Flagstar, I ended up being at Flagstar for almost 5 years and got laid off. And after 125 days, I was hired back in a different role. And then Flagstar sold my department to another company. And we moved over April of 2025, and then some of us were laid off October of 2025. So yeah, to have been laid off that close together really does, it does something to you. So what ends up happening for me, so I'm going to speak for myself, and I just want to know if there are some other people who have gone through this or feel like this. So when I was first laid off, it took a year to get a job. So that was 13 years ago. And then when you end up getting laid off again, you kind of feel some type of way. Like, oh my God, it caught me again. I got bit again. And then when you go and you get another job, you find yourself being anxious. You find yourself being more nervous than you were the other jobs prior to. And as you go through the training process, and for me, I was a mortgage underwriter. And all day long in underwriting, 2 plus 2 will always be 4. That will never change. Some jobs you go to them and things change, rules change. Now, rules change with how we look at tax returns when we want to give money back. And I mean, there's a lot of things that do change, but the meat and potatoes of underwriting stays the same. Okay. And when you are laid off a couple of times and then you get another job doing what you've been doing for 20 years, you start to feel like you're not good at this job. Because if you were good at this job, the last job would not have laid you off. So what I went through, probably the last 2 layoffs, is imposter syndrome. I felt like I'm not good enough. I don't know why I'm here. I don't even know why I'm doing this. It's going to be a matter of time before they lay me off. And the crazy part about it is when I was at Flagstar in underwriting, I started off as an underwriter when I got hired. And then within a year, I became a team lead and I got laid off. I was a team lead, but when I got rehired, 125 days afterwards, I went back as an underwriter. Now, when you get laid off in the mortgage business, it's not like a layoff like when plant workers get laid off. When we get laid off, they might as well say you're fired because they're not going to call you back. We aren't union workers. You get laid off, it's a let go. It is a goodbye. See you later. Have a good day. Okay. So When I went back as an underwriter, I hadn't underwritten in 4 years because I had been a team lead. However, I was a team lead over underwriters. So I was still seeing the daily questions and the processes, and I kept up with guidelines. So although I may not have had a pipeline and was underwriting, you still see, you still saw everything. But you do start to second guess yourself. You feel like you're excited that you now have a job, but you feel like you're not good enough to have that job. Because if you're good enough to have that job, you should have been good enough 2, 3 different times you were laid off before. Then when you're working and you get to those anniversary dates, oh, I'm approaching being here a year, you get nervous. Oh, it's going on 2 years, and you know that 2 year mark, once you cross over the threshold of 2 years, get ready, because somebody's getting laid off. And then what happens is you have survivor's guilt. I'll never forget when there was a layoff, and there was a bunch of folks laid off, and I did not get laid off. My manager got laid off, and a whole bunch of other folks got laid off. And I felt so bad for the people who were laid off. I felt super, super bad. Like it was hard for me to work the rest of the day. And I had survivor's guilt. I felt guilty that they were laid off and I still had my job. And I remember reaching out to my boss's boss at that time because my boss had been laid off. And I remember telling him, hey, I am feeling some type of way. I remember sending an email to the team and telling them, hey, I'm feeling the same way you are. And it is okay to have survivor's guilt, but we are still here and we're here to do a job. And whenever people have been let go, I run into the same issue of having survivor's guilt. And then it pushes me back into that whole imposter syndrome. Well, why am I still here? Well, I don't think I must not be good enough to be here. And oh, but they kept me and not them. Like that is just crazy. So now here we are. The fifth layoff in 13 years. And now I'm going through what I'm going to call PTSD. And it's probably shouldn't be considered PTSD. So I don't want to take away from anyone who suffers from that. But there is some sort of trauma that I am experiencing since being laid off this last time. I have tried to look at the positive parts of it and say it's going to be okay and things always work out and I'll get another job. I always get another job. But this time, the trauma from being laid off and not knowing that it was coming. Sometimes you can see the writing on the wall. Sometimes you feel like, yeah, they're about to do some layoffs, right? And then you're not so surprised. But when you are blindsided and laid off, it cuts a little different. And the trauma that's associated with that, I feel frozen. I am so traumatized from constantly being laid off in the field that I work in that I have extreme difficulties filling out job applications for what I'm good at, for what I know how to do. And I agonize over filling out the application. Now, mind you, I need a job. My mortgage needs to be paid. It's not going to pay itself. And when I look at the job and I read the qualifications, I know I can do it. But this is where they get you. Some of these job descriptions will tell you they want you to have underwritten a certain type of loan within the last 3 months. What the fuck? I could not have done that if I was laid off. I've been laid off since October. So I could not have underwritten not nary a file. So are you not going to interview me because I've not done that? Then they have what's called non-QM underwriters. I was not a non-QM underwriter, okay? However, I know how to read. I can read guidelines. I am more than qualified to be a non-QM underwriter. I have filled out job applications to be a non-QM underwriter. And because I have basically been an agency underwriter, okay, and I can do jumbo, I have my DE, I can do FHA, but I've not done non-QM. But I can read guidelines, but they won't interview me. So that's when that trauma, as I call it, PTSD, kicks in. I almost want to take majority of my underwriting experience off my resume, where I think 20 plus years is a plus. These employers out here are seeing that I've been doing this for 20 plus years and they don't want to pay me. They don't want to pay me what I'm worth. They don't want to do it. And then when you see the years that I've been doing this, then they can add up my age. I stopped putting when I graduated because I didn't want to tell my age. But seeing how long I've been doing this, it's telling my age. So am I hurting myself by leaving that wonderful, wonderful experience of underwriting that started in 1999? Do I take it away and short myself, or do I leave it on there? And that makes me feel some type of way. I am proud of the jobs that I've done. I'm proud that I was a team lead at Citi for many years and then went back to underwriting. And I'm proud that when I got to Flagstar, I was an underwriter and then became a team lead and then got laid off and then went back as an underwriter. The fact that I was able to apply and get rehired spoke to the type of worker that I am. But when you have been traumatized so many times from layoffs in this field, you do start to feel like you are an imposter. You start to feel like you're not good at that job, and that's why they let you go. And I know that sometimes that can be the case and sometimes not. I guess sometimes you may not know, right? I just wanted to know if anyone else felt the same way because I am totally on the struggle bus. Unemployment does not pay the bills. But I have got to dig myself out of this rut. And I have got to find some type of employment. Now, I am starting my own self-employed business, and I had one which was Twisted Cakes, which is baking cakes. And now I'm going to venture off and do something else. But as anyone knows, and if you don't know, you're going to know now, that just because you decide to be self-employed, money doesn't just start rolling in because you say, I'm self-employed. That takes work. So while I try to build my business, I still need a job. And all those feelings of being an imposter come right back at me. Am I not even going to be good at being my own boss? So I'm speaking to myself, and I'm speaking to anyone else that's out there. And as a friend of mine told me, I've got to get out of my own head. So I'm speaking it to you. You've got to get out of your head. Don't let the things that have happened with these other companies define you or tell you how good you are. I won't say how good you were. I'm going to say how good you are. So I hope that this helped someone know that they are not alone in feeling like when they are working that they feel like an imposter. You are not. You are good at what you do. And the whole PTSD feeling, the trauma of being laid off, if every time you get laid off, you find another job, that's the same as falling and getting back up. So if you have fallen and you're crawling and struggling to get back up like I am, you can do it. You got to believe in yourself. You can do it. So I hope you guys have had the day that you deserve. And clearly, I'm having the day that I deserve. So until next time, cheerio.